In recent hours, a question has emerged within the Catholic world that goes far beyond a simple theological discussion. This isn't a mere detail, nor an academic nuance. Here, we touch upon the very foundation of how man is conceived before God. And when the idea of man changes, the idea of the Church inevitably changes as well. It all starts with a precise concept, increasingly repeated in official circles, the so-called infinite human dignity, a powerful, seemingly noble expression, but one that carries enormous implications. This concept was recently taken up again in a study by the International Theological Commission, published on March 4th, entitled Quo Vadis Humanitas, a document that reflects on the future of humanity in an era marked by technology, artificial intelligence, and profound cultural transformations. The central passage is clear. It affirms that human dignity is not something we construct or conquer, but a free gift that precedes us and endures in every circumstance. A dignity that cannot be lost, that cannot be diminished, that cannot be questioned. In other words, a dignity defined as infinite. And this is where the problem arises, because in the Catholic tradition, the term infinite has never been applied to man. Only God is infinite. Only God possesses limitless perfection, an absolute, immutable dignity. Man, however, though created in the image and likeness of God, remains a creature. His dignity is real, supreme, but not infinite. It is a dignity that can be wounded by sin, restored by grace, elevated by redemption. When we affirm that it is infinite and irrevocable, we introduce a new principle. And this principle, as always happens, does not remain isolated. It spreads. It produces consequences. It changes the way we interpret everything else. And this is where the issue becomes even more delicate. According to various rumors, Pope Leo XIV is now close to publishing his first encyclical, scheduled for after Easter, and which would bear a title that is already revealing: Magnificat Humanitas, a text that, it appears, will address the ethical risks of artificial intelligence, the future of work, and the transformation of human relationships. But the inevitable question is another. On what vision of man will this encyclical be built? If the concept of infinite dignity becomes the foundation, then it's no longer just a technological reflection. It's a true anthropological approach. And when anthropology changes, everything changes. Consider, for example, the doctrine of just war. For centuries, the Church has developed precise criteria for assessing when a conflict might be morally permissible, not to justify war, but to limit it, to contain it, to prevent it from becoming arbitrary. But if every human being possesses an infinite and inviolable dignity, then any act that ends life automatically becomes incompatible, not through prudential evolution, but through a transformation of the principle itself. The same applies to capital punishment, a complex issue certainly, but one that in the Catholic tradition has never been considered intrinsically illicit. Today, however, a radically different position seems to be emerging. And once again, the foundation is always the same: human dignity conceived as absolute. But the most profound consequences don't just concern social morality. They concern the heart of Christian life, the sacraments. Because if dignity cannot be lost, if it remains intact under any circumstances, then what sense does it make to speak of mortal sin? What is the meaning of confession? If nothing can truly affect human beings, then redemption becomes almost an afterthought, not a necessity. Tradition has always taught something different. It has taught that man is great, yes, but also wounded, That sin is not a simple imperfection, but a real rupture. That grace is not optional, but what restores man to his true dignity. Without this dynamic, Christianity loses its center. And that's not all, because this new paradigm also affects the very structure of the church. If everyone possesses infinite dignity, then on what basis is the hierarchy founded? Why does a ministerial priesthood exist? Why can some consecrate the Eucharist and others not? The Church has never denied the dignity of the faithful. On the contrary, it has always vigorously defended it, but it has also always recognized a real difference between roles, vocations, and functions. If this difference is perceived as a violation of dignity, then inevitably there is a tendency to eliminate it. Thus unfolds a scenario that, until a few years ago, would have seemed extreme: a progressive reduction of distinctions, a push toward a form of absolute equality where every difference appears suspect, and where, slowly, we could begin to question what, until now, has been considered untouchable. The document also addresses the challenges of transhumanism and posthumanism. It recognizes that humanity, through technology, seeks to overcome its limitations. There is a perceived risk of an escape from human reality, and Christ is proposed as the definitive answer to this tension. But here, too, a crucial question arises. If man is already endowed with infinite dignity, then what does he need to be saved from? If his condition cannot truly be compromised, then what does redemption mean? The answer changes everything. Because Christianity isn't simply a message of human empowerment. It's a message of salvation, and salvation presupposes a wound. It presupposes a fall. It presupposes something that needs to be healed. When this dimension is attenuated, even implicitly, the entire theological edifice begins to crumble, not because it is openly denied, but because its foundation changes. And so the initial question returns, even more forcefully: is this a legitimate development or a drift? The announcement, or rather the indiscretion, about the encyclical Magnifica Humanitas makes this question even more urgent. Because if that text were to confirm this position, then we would no longer be faced with a simple discussion between theologians, but with an orientation destined to shape the future of the Church. It's not about judging intentions. It's not about creating divisions, but about recognizing that words matter. And when a word like infinity is transferred from God to man, the consequences cannot be ignored. Time will tell which direction it will take, but one thing is already clear: the debate is open, and it's unlikely to end in silence. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you.